And now, it's Boomer Life, lifestyle discussion designed to make your life more engaging, meaningful, and complete. Celebrating the baby boomer generation, this is Boomer Life on CIL 650.
And welcome to Boomer Life on CL 650. I'm Joanne Sutton. And today on Boomer Life, we're actually going to focus on the many positive living options available to seniors here in British Columbia. We've brought together a panel of experts who make it their job to see that seniors in this province feel empowered and educated about the options available to them that can dramatically improve their quality of life. So joining us in the studio today from the BC Seniors Living Association, which we might refer to throughout the day as BCSLA. This is the Executive Director, Marlene Williams, and then along with a board member, Alison Howard, and a special guest today is Lydia Miller. Now, Lydia is well known to our Boomer Life audience as an expert in the category of independent and retirement living, and she's here today to speak to the BC Seniors Living Association seal of approval. So first off, ladies, thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here.
Excellent. Now, before we dive into the big topic of the day about choosing the right seniors community, can you tell me a little bit about each one of you, about yourselves and what you do? So Marlene, we can start with you with the BC Seniors Living Association.
Great, thank you. Well, the BC Seniors Living Association is an association that's been established for 14 years. We have 156 site members, all of which provide independent living or assisted living services to probably a little over 14,000 seniors in this province. And we are an association that educates and supports and advocates for these independent retirement communities throughout the province. So I have been with the association for 7 years, and it's my job to coordinate all of the retirement communities for the seal of approval, for education days, for their conference, for anything that will help them run their senior community better, safer, and to enhance the happiness of the seniors that live there.
So you're kind of like the go-to girl. Like
yeah.
Anybody who has any information or needs information, they would go to you.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Alison Howard, what can you tell us about yourself?
I'm very fortunate. I've grown up in the business. I started as a sales and marketing manager for a brand new property in Nanaimo called Origin at Longwood with our company, Origin Active Lifestyle Communities, and was then a general manager of that community. I had the privilege also of working at Tapestry at Westbrook Village at UBC, and now I'm back with Origin working as a vice president of sales and marketing. So I've really seen everything from the front line right up to the 50,000-foot concepts of how to really impart the message of great living options for seniors with retirement and independent housing.
So working independently for all these different seniors' residences and communities, you've really seen firsthand of how it works, where some shortfalls are, or how the general public can actually benefit from
Absolutely.
Fitting into this picture.
Exactly. Yeah, I've been very privileged, as I say, to work directly with families and with seniors themselves in choosing a community, and as well as lots of other aspects.
And you're going to be a big help to us today, I know it. And Lydia Miller, Lydia, what can you tell us about yourself?
Ooh, lots, but let's keep it short.
Okay.
I actually was brought up in hospitality, come from the hotel industry. And a few years ago, about 4 years ago, I transitioned into doing more for retirement living and writing monthly articles to help operators with their sales, marketing, and promotions and customer service. And then it wasn't enough just to write it. I dove into it real deep as a regional director of sales and marketing for Riviera in BC. So that's where maybe some of your audience has heard my voice and seen my name and coming on every month. And bringing different professional guests, and residents and families just to talk about the challenges and the situation. So now I'm with the BC Seniors Living Association as the, if you will, assessor, the BC Seal of Approval. BCSLA Seal of Approval Assessor.
Excellent.
It's a long handle.
It is. It's a big handle, but it's definitely an important handle, and we will find out more about that today as the show carries on. So, Marlene, we're going to tune our focus back to you and talk about the vision of the BC Seniors Living Association.
Well, the association, like I said, started 14 years ago, and it all started with 10 owners and operators that were actually at a Las Vegas conference of a senior housing forum, and sat and basically said, we need an association in the province of British Columbia to where we can network and, the peers can get together and talk about what the challenges are and what the successes are and how can they work better together to make the industry and take it to the next level. So BC Seniors Living was created. And so we've now grown quite a bit larger. And so our mandate as the association is when a retirement community joins our association, they join because they want to network with the peers. They want to have access to resources where they can get best policy practices, thus our seal of approval. They want to come to an education day so they can learn about possibly, like we just did one last week on dementia, early stages of dementia. How's that affecting our independent living seniors living in our communities? We provide resources for policy manuals. We provide everything that we possibly can to help our operators run at the highest level of safety and security for our members. And we have lots of fun because it's a really good group. Everybody that's in this industry, in my opinion, as an outsider looking in from the association perspective, they are so motivated and they're so passionate and they're so dedicated to serving the seniors in BC that it's sometimes very heartwarming to see when you go to these communities and just see how much caring and how much loving there is there. It's refreshing to be part of the umbrella of the association, but also to go out and see our members and just see what a great job they do taking care of the seniors.
And I can tell you're really passionate about your job. We can hear it. We hear it in your voice. Yeah. Excellent. Can we just define what community means? I think it might be confusing to some of our listeners. I know it was to me,
People don't want to call it a facility.
Absolutely. So, for lack of a better term, it's what we used to know as like a senior's residence or a senior's home. It's not a care home.
No.
It's just the building that you live in, but it's not just a building anymore. And I think this is why we're calling it a community.
Exactly. And I think that the general public relates to facility as a clinical term. It reminds them of a hospital. It reminds them of a place they go for end of life. And so we work very, very hard in our industry to not call it a facility or a care home. So we call it a community or we call it a senior's residence. Interestingly enough, one of the ways that we're moving this year is I just went down to a conference in Los Angeles and we had a speaker do a survey of over 8,000 seniors living in retirement communities in the United States. And the independent living communities down there are very similar to here in BC. And the number one terminology that the seniors said of why they move into an independent living community is they want it to be their new home.
Yes.
So not a home where you go to, be old. They want it to be their new home, just like their home that they're living in right now. And so a home is where you live. And in your home, you're surrounded by a community, whether it be an individual house. And so I think the term, we went to communities because it represents congregate living and relationships and a place where you can network and be with like-minded people.
So I'm going to digress just a little bit here. It reminds me of the days when my parents, just got married and were trying to pick a community to live in to raise their children. So it's picking that home for you at this different stage in your life. It's That's the neighborhood. It's access to independent living. It's access to public transit or schools or whatever
all the services you need.
Yeah, all the services you need at this point in your life.
Right? And there's two communities.
As a senior, right?
There's the internal community, which is within the walls of the building itself, and then how that is connected to the community at large. Mm-hmm. So the surrounding areas and the different amenities inside and outside of the building itself. So you really get to pick two communities.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the list of things we need to consider when choosing the right community. Where do we start? With the environment, the location, where's a good place to start?
Well, it's interesting because I went through this with my mother. And I think it's really important for the families to understand what is going to make their mother or father comfortable. So for an example, my mother was born and raised on a farm. Then we lived in a very small community. And when we talked to her about moving into a retirement community and we started taking her out to look at ones, she doesn't want to live in a big, high-end, beautiful community. She wanted to live in a very home-like setting that was very low-key, that it was almost like living in her own home. Whereas my aunt, on the other hand, traveled the world, loved cruise ships, loved staying in the Four Seasons. She wanted the high-end community that could take care of her. So I think it's really important for families to I think the first step is to sit, what is going to make my mother or father comfortable to make them feel like they're leaving one home and going to another home. And I think that's an important factor to begin with.
And
Because
yep, sorry. And
And
then
Lydia?
they also want to know that family is nearby. So that, as families grow up, as your adult kids grow up, they move away, they start having their own lives, their own kids. The grandkids have to go to soccer, the grandkids have piano lessons, they've got French, whatever. So it's important that the parent be closer to the adult children now, so that they have an easier access, they have a more convenient access, and then it doesn't take them, all day to travel from one end of the province to the other to visit. And the parent, actually, or senior, they also want to stay in the area or neighborhood where they grew up, where they raised their families. That house that they built, right? That dad built for mom. And then we had all our siblings, and then we had our dogs, and we had, all the neighbors across the street. We all got together, and it was like a real welcoming feeling to stay where you were always raised and had your home.
A very important point.
Sometimes that's not always possible, though, and that is absolutely the ideal situation. But we're noticing a trend in the senior housing where the parents of the adult children are moving, like picking up house and moving to the island, or moving from the interior to Vancouver, or from Vancouver to the interior.
Changing locations completely.
Just because kids go. We don't live in the same cities where we were raised necessarily. Jobs take us away, marriages take us away. And so then it's for the families is, if mom and dad are making this trek here, let's find something, is exactly what Marlene was saying, that suits the values and the experience of our parents. It may be a new community, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean that those values change. And so I think what is fantastic about choosing a retirement community is you have an instant network, you have an instant social group, because as you get older it's more difficult to make friends and you're less inclined. You don't necessarily want to put yourself out there because you get quite set in your ways. Whereas in one of our communities, the beautiful thing is you can make the friends, they're there if you want them, and if you need the peace and quiet, you have your suite and you just go close the door.
And actually, great little stories coming from certain areas like Kerrisdale or White Rock. It's like the parents grew up there, just what Joanne was saying. The kids move away, they have a different life. So now what do? It's so difficult to visit. And then the senior starts thinking, okay, all my friends are dying off. The kids are far away. What am I going to do? And that is exactly what they do, is they go, okay, I've got to up and move. I've got to find help. How am I going to do this? Who's going to help me? And it becomes a real traumatic situation for them.
Becomes overwhelming. Absolutely overwhelming. There's too many choices. There's too many things to think of. Oh my gosh. So where do you start? This is a great place to start. So once we've established a conversation with the person, the family member that needs to move or relocate, talk about location, talk about that environment. Where does price factor in?
Well, I'm actually going to probably defer this to what we did with my mother, because I think that parents that live in a house don't really know what it costs them to run it.
Yes.
They really don't. And I know that most of the retirement communities have this great sheet where it says fill out what it costs you, because you've got your land and your taxes and your mowing and you've got everything, and if your roof goes it's $20,000, and on and on and on. So all they see is, oh my gosh, I can't afford $3,000 a month. That's way too expensive. But when you add everything up and you add in the labor, you have to add in your labor to cook, to clean, you have to add in the food, you have to add in everything. And I think in most cases,
peace of mind, security,
exactly,
maintenance. You don't have to fix a roof anymore.
The gardener,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so when you add up the two of them, they're fairly close. They're fairly close. Sometimes they're a little bit higher, but the other thing that we are very lucky to have in the province of British Columbia is our real estate values. So if you have indeed owned your house or your condo in British Columbia, and you're of the age group of, 78 to 80 or 82, which is the age group that's moving into the retirement communities, because our seniors are very healthier and very active longer, so they're moving in at a later age. What happens is they say, oh, I can't afford that. My pension's only this. And you say, but you're sitting on $700,000 and you're 80 years old, and Mom, I'm successful. I don't need your money. You use all your money to be as happy as you can for as long as you can. And I think that's kind of one of the things that a lot of, the children are telling their parents, but the parents, if they're coming from the Depression era, which mine did,
Yes.
they're
holding on to
they're
every
hoarding their
penny.
money, and they're saving it because they believe that they have to save it and give it as a legacy to their children. But most of the boomers right now are saying, I got my own money, Mama, I don't need yours. But the parents are saying, no, I need to give it to you. And so there's that barrier that you have to counter or, to get over as well.
And you also have to talk to them about best case scenario. If you're having this conversation when they're 80, just say, okay, longevity, people live longer than they used to now.
Yeah.
So, okay, best case scenario, Mom, you want to be comfortable for the next 20 years? Let's estimate that you will live to 100 and you can average out your $700,000 nest egg over that time that you've been sitting on from selling your house. And
that's what the adult children need to do is they start to have the conversation, but they need to have those conversations sooner in life with the parents.
Yes. Yeah.
To plan ahead so that when they do decide on moving into a community, they find the right one and they can enjoy everything that's available there. All the services, all the food, all the new friendships they're going to make, because that's going to be the tough part. We had people, stories I could tell you, they're 99 years old, they've got a walker, they might be, not motoring as quickly, and you ask them when they want to move in, they go, I'm not ready.
Yes.
yeah, they're still completely independent.
That's for old people.
Yeah.
99.
You're listening to Boomer Life on CL 650, and joining us in the studio today from the BC Seniors Living Association are the Executive Director, Marlene Williams, along with Board Member Alison Howard, and our special guest, Lydia Miller. Please take a moment to visit their website for more information at www.bcsla.ca. We're going to be right back with some more great information on how you can pick the best community for retirement. And we'll be talking about the food as well. That's next on Boomer Life on CL 650.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.